Letter 36. On Life and Death. To Sister Marie Antoinette de Marouet, 1742. On Life and Death, Consolations and Trials. Here I am again at Albi, in a very agreeable climate, and among sociable people in whom the only fault I find is that of being too kind to me who always prefer solitude. The frequent invitations I receive are to me a veritable cross, and God will without doubt send me many others to temper the pleasure I feel in finding myself for the 4th time in a country that I have always loved so much. Blessed be God for all. He sows crosses everywhere. But I have already made a sacrifice of all, have accepted and offered in advance all the afflictions He is pleased to send me. This intention, made beforehand, renders trials much easier to bear when they come, and makes them seem much lighter than imagination depicted them. Therefore I am overjoyed to find myself where God wishes me to be by the arrangements of His loving providence, which always leads me as though by the hand. This paternal solicitude, of which I am continually the object, redoubles my confidence. Although I am always in perfect health, I feel that the years, so rapidly passing, will soon bring me to that eternal goal to which we are all hastening. True, this thought is bitter to nature, but by dint of considering it as salutary, it becomes almost agreeable, as a disgusting remedy gradually ceases to appear so, when its good effects have been experienced. One of my friends said the other day that in getting old, it seemed to him that time passed with increasing rapidity, and that weeks seemed to him as short as days used to be, months like weeks, and years like months. As for that, what do a few years more or less signify to us who have to live and continue as long as God Himself? Those who have gone before us 20 or 30 years ago, or even a century, or those who will follow us 20 or 30 years hence, will neither be behindhand nor before others in that vast eternity, but it will seem to all of us as though we began it together. Oh, what power does not this thought contain to soften the rigors of our short and miserable life, which, patiently endured, will be to our advantage. A longer or a shorter life, a little more or a little less pain, what is it in comparison with the eternal life that awaits us, for which we are making rapidly, incessantly, and which is almost in sight, for me especially, who am, as it were, on the brink and on the point of embarking. It is therefore time, I ought to say, with St. Francis of Sales and Father Surin, to prepare my small equipment for eternity. Now the best equipment is that which appeared for us in the crosses which we bear lovingly, and the great sacrifice we make for God in doing His holy will. Nothing will console us more at the hour of death than our humble submission to the different arrangements of Divine Providence, in spite of the subtle imaginations of self-love often hidden under the most spiritual disguise and the most specious pretexts. Do not be surprised, then, my dear sister, at being placed by God in this necessity of practicing abandonment. The vicissitudes of good and evil, of illness and cure through which He makes you pass, are well calculated to keep you in a state of continual dependence upon Him, and to impel you to make acts of confidence of the most meritorious kind. To make a holy use of sufferings mitigates them considerably, and renders them extremely profitable. To bear them well is to make a great sacrifice comparable to that of those generous Christians who formerly confessed their faith at the stake. Because the sufferings of life and the sorrows attached to the different states make martyrs of Providence, as the tortures inflicted by tyrants make martyrs of faith and of religion. I find, too, that the comparison of which you make use is very just. Yes, our life is like the journey of the Israelites across the desert, amidst 1,000 trials, and followed by the 2 just judgments of God. Let us imitate the faithful Jews in recognizing the divine equity in the chastisements He inflicts on us, and in regarding all our afflictions, both visible and hidden, as the work of God, and not that of man's injustice. God, says St. Augustine, would not allow any evil to happen, if he were not sufficiently powerful and good to turn it all to the greater good of his elect. Let us make use of our present evils to escape those that are eternal, and to merit the rewards promised to faith and patience. The time will come, and it is at hand, when we shall say with David, "We have rejoiced for the days in which thou hast humbled us, for the years in which we have seen evils." Psalm 89, verse 15. Letter 37. Not to desire consolations. To the same person, Nancy, 21st February, 1735. Desire for consolations a mistake. My dear sister, I have seen the card announcing the death of dear Sister Anne Catherine de Prudhomme. See note. Note. This sister came of a very noble family of Lorraine, and was professed in the convent of the Visitation, Sister Marie de Nancy, in the year 1666, at the age of 21. Her principal attraction was that of abandonment to Divine Providence. She was perfectly submissive to the will of God, by a continual fiat, for every event, saying on all occasions, "If you, my divine King, my great monarch, will or do not will such, or such a thing, that suffices me. May you be praised and blessed for all and in all." Her great confidence in God drew down abundant graces upon her soul. In her last illness, she remained always in a state of constant adoration, contrition, faith, confidence, and union with Jesus Christ crucified, of love for God, and abandonment to his fatherly goodness, and always wore a look of peace, joy, and thanksgiving. Her union with God continuing up to her last breath, she quietly expired of simple weakness at the age of 90, with all her intellectual faculties unimpaired. This extract is from the life of this good sister by Reverend Mother L. F. de Rosan. End of note. I could in no way regret the departed whose fate is rather to be envied. At the sight of death, fear should be united to confidence, but confidence ought to predominate. Abandonment is what the sister you mentioned should aim at. I refer her on this subject to the letter of B. Paul, who says she is no longer uneasy, as former, about the graces necessary during life, and at the hour of death, because she will be encouraged by God, whose name of Father gives her confidence with resignation. If it is not possible to feel this, even then one must abandon oneself to God, and this abandonment, when not felt, is of more value, since it involves a greater sacrifice. This letter of B. Paul I use as spiritual reading. After having answered it, it seemed to me that I had understood better from it, and more enjoyed certain very interior things that were both delicate and profound. I do not at all approve of an anxious pursuit after consolations, either in spiritual or physical wretchedness and misery. That comes of too much care of oneself. Would that there were souls strong and courageous enough to endure the apparent absences of the heavenly spouse, who never absents himself in reality, but only in appearance, to detach us from what is sensible even in the most spiritual things, because the gifts of God are not God himself. He alone is all, and should be all in all to us. Excessive fear arises from a want of confidence and abandonment. It is on this account that I referred Sister to this letter of B. Paul. God wills that she, and you too, should remain in such absolute poverty that he has given me nothing for either of you. But I hope that you will both profit by a good long letter written to someone of whom I asked a copy. Will you return me the original, as I want to send it to another person who is precisely Sister, of whom God made me think. I greet most heartily all the sisters, and particularly Marie-Anne Thérèse, and with especial respect, your Reverend Mother, Elève de Rozan.